Welcome to the comic zone. Welcome to the comic zone.
What up, what up, what up? It is time for the Comic Zone podcast. Woo! And I'm my awkward self, Bill. We got Nike in the house and Mike on the phone.
What's going on, guys?
Good. We got a lot of cool stuff happening.
Oh, yeah.
We got Comic-Con just in a couple days here, and then next week, Wyoming PopCon. We're going to be at both of them, so swing by if you're in the Casper area, say hello. And
Yep, we'll be at a booth recording, so stop in and sit down with us and talk.
Heck yeah.
So we are talking The Flash, or as I like to say, the new Batman movie that unfortunately stars Ezra Miller.
Facts.
And we're going to get into spoilers eventually, but the first part we're going to try and keep spoiler free until you hear that
Lovely sound effect.
So let's start off, and who wants to go with just first impressions? Who wants to start it off? Because I think we have a various opinion of a lot of different aspects of things that we liked, loathed.
I'm curious to hear what Sean thought on a scale of 1 to 10.
You know what? I'm going to give it really high marks, actually. I'm going to give it a 9. I'm going to go as far as saying...
Damn, that's crazy. That's crazy.
There's my reason for the high marks. For one, I think all the acting was great. Let's put this out there. Forget what's going on with Ezra Miller's personal life. I think he did an excellent job of portraying both Barrys. I think the storyline was really good on this one. One of the things that I liked was that it's very much based on the Flashpoint paradox, which was a very big deal in the DC comic book universe.
I need to read that one.
Yes, and I own it. I will loan it to you.
But you could watch the animated movie too. It's very good.
I've heard a lot of.
Yeah, I've got both.
Loves that too.
But the one thing I'll say is they changed a lot of things, but it worked for the film. And because they changed it, that means if you're familiar with Flashpoint paradox, you're going to know some things is going to happen, but there were a whole lot of things that they changed that fit in the storyline that made it so. One of the things that I think they don't do enough in comic book films where you didn't know what was going to happen. And I like that. Like I said, if you're familiar with the storyline, yeah, there's going to be some things you're going to know are going to happen, but there's enough different in this film where I think if you are a DC fan, you definitely want to watch it.
I don't have as high a praise of it. If I had to give it a number, I would probably say like a 5.
Whoa, that's way low.
Yeah, the CGI was incredibly bad.
Some of it. I would agree with a lot of it, like with the baby stuff.
A lot of it was so bad. Like, it was just like, this is fucking... It looks like, Scorpion King back in the day.
Yeah.
How bad The Rock looked. I mean, that's what it reminded me of.
I would agree, especially early on.
And the story wasn't bad. I will give it that the story was pretty solid, and like you said, I mean, it mirrors or is reminiscent of the Flashpoint paradox. I enjoyed Michael Keaton in there.
Of course.
He was baller.
But
I mean, I wish he would have been like old, like hairbag more.
Yeah.
Hairbag fighting Batman. That would have been bad. Because he's kind of, that looks like the White Knight series that's out now.
Mm-hmm.
There's an old Batman and it kind of almost looks like that. So.
Yeah, and also, I know you said, like, forget, Ezra Miller's, like, whatever, but, I mean, he's supposed to be likable in this movie, right? You're supposed to like Barry Allen.
Right.
One of them.
He makes it very hard to like him at all.
Are you saying because of what you know what's going on in his real life?
Yes. That really kind of, I didn't think it would ruin it for me as much as it did, but I mean, just knowing what a piece of shit he is, and then he's supposed to be likable and funny, I couldn't bridge that gap.
I get it. A lot of people
And,
can't. You know what I mean? A lot of people can't. So I remember, bro, I ran into one of my homegirls as we were leaving, and I think she was a Spider-Man, and she said she wouldn't go see it, period, just because he was in it.
Chelsea said the
that's
same
what
thing.
Chelsea
Chelsea,
said.
you know, and
I
I think
saw-
that's a very important point to kind of, and I almost think that impacted his acting ability, because this movie had to overcome so much to even happen.
Mm-hmm.
Change of directors, writers, Ezra Miller's legal shit, as well as COVID and lockdowns.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
Okay,
so
and you know-
much that it had to overcome. And I think that played a huge toll on his acting. And I think he was kind of the weakest point, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, and what, a big part of what, I think if this movie came out, a long time ago, I would have loved it more.
Right.
But also, what kills it for me too is that I know it doesn't go anywhere after this. Like, they're revamping the universe. Like, it's not going anywhere. So it kind of feels like, like, okay, cool, like, big deal though, because we're not doing anything with it. Just like
Black.
the same old fucking shit that DC does is like they can't just fucking get behind something if it does anywhere. The first sign of trouble, they just abandon ship
It's a good
with
point,
all
though.
their shit, and that drives me nuts.
Well, I'll put it to you like this. I'm starting to wonder how much they're really going to reboot. Like, I know a lot of stuff is, I don't think it's going to be as drastic as we were thinking. I think it's going to be kind of like what they did with Transformers. There's going to be like some soft rebooting and some multiverse stuff, but I don't really think, like, I'm pretty sure we're going to have to get a new Batman, and we'll probably get a new
We already
Aquaman.
have a new Batman.
Yeah.
They have many Batman to choose from.
Facts.
Before we get into too many spoilers.
Yeah.
But I forgot where I was going to go. Squirrel.
I'd be shocked if they all out start from scratch again. You know what I mean?
And he's got to keep
Well,
some
they'll probably-
surprises.
it's like you said, they might pick and choose what they like and what they want to keep, and then just kind of.
And I think there's a certain point where they need to keep some surprises. And I think James Gunn knows that.
Mm-hmm.
And even if he's like taking everything away, but then he's going to put it back when he feels like it. He's very holding his cards very close and playing it tight knit. So
And it's in good hands with James Gunn. I mean, we all trust him as far as seeing what he did with Guardians, and
yes and no.
so I think why?
Well,
What do you mean?
I like that grittiness and losing that edge and that darkness, and especially in some of these, villains for DC.
But who's to say that'll happen? Like,
No, that's my
like,
concern. They're like the Joker has very easily written in comedic elements, just like, Harley Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to kind of keep that balance and not being too just music video. I guess that would be my problem. It's his greatest, it's his greatest strength and also a little bit of his weakness, that it's too much of just a music video and not enough substance as far as the writing and actually thing. Now,
but
with
isn't
a
he
grain of salt,
taking-
that's my concern. And I think sometimes he nails it out of the park, and then sometimes to me it just feels like a little bit of filler.
Well, this brings me to a question that I want to ask both of you. And Mike, I think I know your answer, but with seeing what he did with Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, how does that affect your thoughts of what's coming next? What he's going to do for DC next?
That's why I have confidence in it.
And that,
Because both of those are excellent.
they were good, but it's like how long can you be funny? And as far as a writing and a challenge, as far as a show, if it's just funny and about the sketch, how long can it stay fresh and stay relevant? And it's a very hard thing to do.
Be a problem.
You know what? I see, like, you have very high marks for Peacemaker, and I thought it was good, but I'm only giving it a 7 because basically what Bill just said. I think there was a little bit too much of the comedy aspects that were over the top, which they worked for that character, but I do have a fear that he's going to do that with too much of the universe as a whole.
But also, he's not going to direct every single movie. So, I mean, he will.
And
You know what I mean? So you don't have to worry about that and everything.
that's true. And I would love to see, and I want to say this for the record out loud, and I would love to say it to his face. I would love to see him do Lobo. I think he would
Yeah,
nail
he would kill
that.
He would kill that.
You know, I mean, because he would know. I think he would play it true enough to the comic and get that comedic, that complete narcissist fucking asshole that you love and adore, or at least some love and adore.
Most, yeah, everybody likes Lobo. That's what
Or-
I like.
or
People
loathe
love
and be like-
most people love Lobo.
Yeah. Meh.
He's the Deadpool of DC, but more like Wolverine.
Yeah, wasn't he Wolverine parody?
Yeah, he's a Wolverine parody. Like they did that to make a Deadpool. You know what I mean? Because Deadpool was a parody of Deathstroke. You know what I mean? And DC did that on purpose with making him a parody of Logan and going way over the top with him.
I like him. I was
I do.
watching, when I was waiting for you guys to call, I was flipping through TikTok and I saw there's this new animated movie that's out. I think it's a younger Superman, and then he's got a bounty on his head. Doesn't even know he's a Kryptonian.
Oh yeah, I own that movie. That one came out last year.
It looks pretty good. And then I mean, and I liked the way they went with Lobo in that movie for sure. Whoever they got to voice act that,
Yeah. And we didn't even know Lobo was going to be in that film. So see that your TikTok blew that one for you, which I guess it's fine. That movie's almost a year old. But when I purchased that film,
what movie is it?
I can't remember what it's called. That was like the reboot. Like the last thing they did for the animated films was they brought the New 52 to an end, which was how they ended the Flashpoint paradox and everything where it was connected. Because there had been like 10 years of DC movies with the same voice actors and the continuation of the story, and then they ended it with Flash fixing the universe. And that Superman film was a reboot to their animated stuff. So now everything is completely new. They've got a completely different voice cast. And I will say that film was better than I thought. I don't think it was as good as what came before, but it was way better than I thought it was going to be.
So let's circle back to the new Flash movie. So what are some other first impressions, or what are the things that you didn't like? Is there any?
I will agree with Mike. I didn't like some of the CGI, but I let it ride for one main reason. Like that scene with the babies at the beginning, that looks so fake.
Yeah,
especially the babies, and understand why you can't put babies in dangerous situations.
It would be too triggering.
Yeah, but the reason I let it ride after that was because I was so impressed with how they did the two Barrys. I've seen where they use the same actor, you know what I mean, and they superimpose the face. That was probably some of the best I have ever seen of using the same.
I'll give you that. It did look good, and the way
Seamless.
that his acting with himself was very good. It did seem like there were two of him.
And I guarantee they probably that's probably why some of this other CGI looked weak, because they really went all in. Like there was,
I think it could have, as far as total production, it was relatively streamlined, and I think it was smart and also kind of cheap at the same time, because like a lot of the CGI was just him running and kind of this like elbows in front of his face,
the throwing,
and
bro. And speaking of him running, that part where he loses his powers and tries to, like, he starts running in a circle.
That was one of the best parts.
Dude, that shit was fucking hilarious.
Because that's what the rest of it. Because it was a joke at itself. He's like, I know how ridiculous this looks.
Which brings me to something that I did want to bring up to this. I don't know if I've said it before. I think I did on like some of the earlier podcasts, but I always found it hilarious. This is from way back in like Wonder Woman and the original Flash TV show from the 80s days, where the father from the recent Flash with Grant Garrison or whatever his name is, the original Flash plays his dad. All right, so that came out in the mid 80s and it was very cheesy. Same way with some of the stuff that was in the original Wonder Woman. It always cracks me up whenever they want to show somebody moving super fast, they do it in slow-mo.
It's in slow motion.
Yeah.
Totally. And then everything else, like the foreground is in fast mode, but they're in slow. Yeah, that's
in 40 years they're still using that trope. That's
slow motion.
Kind of funny.
That's where they killed it in. Which one was it that had Quicksilver in it the first time?
The X-Men?
No. Well,
when he's They
I don't
didn't
know
really-
because he was in one of the X-Men film, well, a couple of the X-Men films, but then we had Taylor, what's his face in the Avengers, the one with Age of Ultron. So we've had two different Quicksilvers. Which one are you talking about?
The way you know when he like the one where it's the same guy that was in WandaVision.
Okay, that's the X-Men one.
So not
Quicksilver.
not Quicksilver in the Avengers, but on like
That's the X-Men version.
the
Okay.
X-Men.
Yeah.
So the way they did it in those movies, I liked a lot because he still zipped around even when everybody was in slow motion.
Right.
So he wasn't in slow motion; the background was.
Yeah, and that was well done.
And I always thought that was really great, like that. Even when the Xavier school is exploding, you know, and he's running around grabbing everybody.
Yes.
Remember?
Yep.
Yeah, that was really well done, and maybe my favorite version, like you're saying, or like visual on a speedster.
I'd agree with that. Speaking of, and I'm glad, and this is going to go sideways for a hot second. The other guy that played Quicksilver, Pietro Maximoff, in the MCU, today they released or maybe it was yesterday, they released the trailer for Kraven the Hunter.
I saw the.
Was it
I didn't
legit?
see the trailer.
I mean, as far
I
as
didn't
like it
see
was
the
an
trailer.
official trailer,
Yeah.
not some hack.
Nah, it's an official trailer, and it's a red band too. So I think Sony has learned, and this is just be a quick one. I think maybe we should do like a little quick one with the three of us for this later on, but after you've both seen it. But I think Sony realized what they did wrong with Morbius, and all the mistakes they made with Morbius, some of the ones they made with Venom. It looks like, at least from the trailer, they did it right with Kraven. You know what I mean? So
Here's the thing.
This one's
Here's
it's rated R, so that's one. It's a rated R film.
And they nailed Miles.
Mm-hmm.
So they know how to do. I think they've got the right formula, and especially they've done Spider-Man justice for the most part. I mean, I would.
Well, check this out. Also, it's very easy to. Kraven's a way cooler villain than Morbius. I mean, he's always been really aesthetically cool looking and just a cool character.
But I think the fact that they're doing
to fuck that up.
But I think that this shows why a lot of the comic book films have been scared to do rated R. And I think Morbius had the potential to be good, but how you gonna have a vampire and there's no blood?
And they're trying to make him an anti-hero.
Yeah.
It was more of they wanted him to be, versus,
you know how bad that movie was?
It was pretty bad.
I don't even remember any part of it.
The cringeworthy parts of the dude dancing all weird.
Ugh.
I don't remember any of that movie.
There were some good parts to it, but yeah, overall the storyline, it started off good and everything was shit after that. Even you know what I mean, the post-credit scene with Vulture from the Spider-Man film. Like,
yeah, I'm glad Michael Keaton redeemed himself in this other one because that was very disappointing. So I'm glad that I like Batman. Michael Keaton in this one was one of the best parts for me.
oh yeah,
The big part that pissed me off about Morbius is they didn't take the opportunity to bring Blade in and like really do
his power set
Blades.
correctly. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean they missed a huge opportunity.
I agree. I agree. That was one of the first things I said when we left the film.
Yeah, screwed the fucking pooch big time. And remember, I was so stoked about that.
Yeah.
Well,
They
they were trying to tie it into Spider-Man, but it all got all fucked up in the schedule. So I think they were trying to tie it into something bigger, missed the opportunity because they knew they had a shitter movie, and then just finally said, here you go.
That part could have been a very small part of the movie. You just make sure that, because didn't he bite Blade's mother?
No.
But shoulda, woulda, coulda. It doesn't matter. It's
He bit Blade because Blade really didn't have any powers in the comic book.
Okay.
They retroactively, after the success of Wesley Snipes movies, they went back because he wasn't a vampire. You know what I mean? His only power was that he was immune to vampire bites because the vampire bit his mother when he was pregnant. The whole reason he got powers was because Morbius bit him later on in life. And Marvel Comics did that. You know what I mean? To make the comic book character.
And they should have done that. That would have been a good way to introduce Blade. You don't have to show him the
Right.
entire movie.
Yeah.
You
But
just make that a small part of the movie.
But I think the reason it didn't happen, because that's when Sony and Disney were beefing over Spider-Man shit. So let alone get any other MCU characters, if they couldn't even get like at that point in time when when they were shooting Morbius, we didn't know if we were going to get any more Spider-Man in the MCU. So between
Wasn't
COVID,
Wasn't Venom already like in the MCU at that point? We'd seen him
before that because of Venom 2,
Far From
yeah.
Home.
But like I said,
Was
the
it
beef,
before Far From Home, or was that after?
I can't remember the timeline.
Yeah, was Morbius after Far From Home?
It was around the same time. It was after Venom 2, but
Hold
I don't.
on, I'm gonna look it up. Keep going while I do.
Yeah, well, let's get back on the Flash while you're looking that up.
So I mean, in the when he was in the time travel little bubbles, everything looked very the CGI looked really
Shitty.
cheap. But they said in an interview that was done on purpose that they wanted it to look this like surreal cartoon or like I thought it looked like a PlayStation 2 video game.
That sounds like a fucking cop out to me. They're like, this looks like shit. We need an excuse.
I think they ran out of money and they ran out of time for CGI and they did a couple things. I started saying this earlier, that one, that they reused a lot of stuff, that you reusing the stuff from the Superman movie saved them a lot of money because they had a lot of stuff already spent, ready to go, loaded, plus that. And then, you know, repurposing other thing, every action shot or a lot of them was just, you could tell it was just green screen. The background was very minimal. There wasn't much going on other than a few ships here or there.
Yep.
They trimmed down the budget a lot to keep things going, to keep the film alive. And I think at a certain point in time, they're like, we just need to get this thing done and kind of throw it out there. And so far, they're making money with it. And as far as Hollywood goes, it's on the right track.
Yeah, if it's going
financially. But we'll...
All right, check it out. Spider-Man No Way Home came out in 2021. Morbius came out a year later. So that means Venom was technically a part of the MCU, but at that point.
Not until Venom 2. It wasn't until Venom.
No, it was in Far From Home. You saw Venom
that's right.
at the end of the movie in that. You remember he's at the Tiki Bar or
Yeah,
whatever?
You're right at that point. But at the end of Venom 2, it kind of they doubled back on what they did, because the post-credit scene in Venom 2 pretty much put him back in Sony's hands. Like
Well, he went back to his timeline. He left a piece of the symbiote behind.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is like these villain films that Sony's doing, they were trying to build up to a Sinister
6. Yep.
Sinister 6. So all I'm saying is like using Morbius as a intro for Blade, what shouldn't have been that far off. I mean, he doesn't have anything to do with Spider-Man, but it would have been a nice little Easter egg and a nice setup for the Blade things coming up.
It would have been, but considering that they've put Blade on the back burner, and that's still a Disney property, why all the Spider-Man characters still belong to Sony, I think that would have been a little bit harder than we're giving them credit for. You know what I mean? I would have liked to have seen it, but
that's like building. It's like building bridges. You know, we give you Spider-Man, and then Disney gives the care. You know what I mean? Just like.
I wanted to see it, but trust me, I wanted to see it as much as you, but I also understand why it didn't happen. I don't agree with why, but I understand why.
Yeah, I got you.
All right, so we might as well get into the spoilers now, because I think we already kind of gave one.
So, but I mean, this isn't really a spoiler.
Superman, Batman, Superman, everywhere.
This isn't really a spoiler, but Kara.
Right.
I thought she was one of the very best parts of that movie. Whoever that chick is that was playing her killed it. She's fucking sexy as fuck.
Yes, she is.
In that suit.
So why'd the suits all have to give everybody like wedgies and Melvins? I mean, it's like, what was up with that? I mean, everybody had this inflamed cod piece or just like There you go.
Right.
I hated
Camel
I
toe.
fucking hated Flash's suit. Oh, it looked so fucking stupid.
See, I liked it.
I fucking hated it. It looked like a, a cosplay suit that somebody, I don't know. I didn't like it.
I liked it
could've
better
been-
than the one he had in Justice League.
I don't know. I thought the Justice League one was better.
See, that one looked more
It did-
armor, and I didn't
it-
like that it looked like armor. You know what I
This-
mean?
The new one looks like armor. It looks like a Power Ranger suit.
You might want to go back and look at the one from Justice League again. That one looked like a Power Ranger
It
suit.
was kind of chunky.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was very, very, very Iron Man knockoff. You know what I mean?
What I did really like about the movie was how it handled the time travel theme. It didn't get too complicated, and it still was able to kind of get a little nerdy at the same time. So it was able to kind of create its own-ish culture about it, which I think I would imagine that part they really pulled from the comic. And the whole spaghetti
everything
theme,
else-
talking about the spaghetti, is just a kind of crazy. You know, if you're going to see one of those spoiler-free memes, it's going to have a bowl of spaghetti on it.
I think that was good because it also showed how smart Batman was too, because he broke that down to Flash. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That time
I'm
doesn't
gonna
go in a
disagree.
straight line.
I'm gonna disagree with you guys on the suit in Justice League. I think that looks way fucking better than the one in this new movie. I'm looking at it right now. I think it looks way better.
I have no weight on the argument either way.
Yeah, I get what you're saying about it looking like a Power Ranger suit, though. It does.
All right, what'd you think about the spaghetti thing as far as the with Michael Keaton?
The explanation of it.
Yeah,
I mean I do, and I like how they fired shots at Marvel because they were like they were like picking apart Marvel's divergent timeline idea.
I
The
don't
way
think
he
that was on
describing
purpose. It might have been.
think
I didn't
it
get
was.
that from it.
They were doing that definitely
it
to
was.
Back to the Future. They were disproving the Back to the Future kind of timeline theory, which we've seen before. Like I think I remember first in like Big Bang Theory. You know, they just that's not how
Real
time travel would work.
I think the spaghetti metaphor it's probably way more accurate to reality than like the way Marvel did it, and they made it as simple as possible so you could understand it easier than the divergent timeline thing. But I like the bullet spaghetti
Metaphor.
metaphor. I like that.
That actually follows string. Some of the thoughts are on string theory,
Yeah.
so it's based in science
Yeah.
loosely.
Yeah.
And-
And
and-
that- I mean,
As,
it's the way
as
it
much
would
as you can in a
probably
comic
be.
book movie.
That's the way it would probably be too. I mean, the essence of time would be so fucking chaotic to us. I mean, it would be. I mean, any kind of description we come up with is always going to be way more simple than what the actual reality is.
if there ever
Like-
is a reality
Well,
that we could time travel.
Time is our perception.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the problem as far as it's something to travel through. It's how we perceive our lives and our days and
Yeah,
our
but
time, our trips
also-
around the earth versus,
also
you know,
time-
something
time-
that's tangible like a river.
All right, but also time can be affected by gravity and shit. You can see time and space warp.
Again, by perspective of the person.
No, but actually, if you're traveling at the speed of light, like you leave Earth and you travel at the speed of light for a year, you come back, everybody's going to be gone,
Or
and you'll be the
intense
same.
intense moments within athletes, you know, when they're in the zone, that time slows down, and when we see them it's just effortless, but there's so much energy and just training behind those motions, you know,
Or
whether
when you're
that's
doing something fun, time flies, and then when you're doing something you don't want to do, it takes fucking forever to.
I'll take it to
depression slows things down like a quagmire.
like
Oh,
you were
yeah.
saying, like with athletes, this is more. It's similar, but as like a performer. So like when I'm on stage and rapping, especially when I'm somewhere where I have to perform a song that I haven't done a radio version for, and I have to, think ahead to make sure I edit out swear words or, sex metaphors and things like that. So while I'm rapping currently to the beat, I'm thinking for bars ahead. All right, when I get to this point, say this word, so you don't say this word,
Fuck,
and
that's
then when
gotta
your
be
brain
tough.
catches up. Like, I really like how you said that, because I tell people that all the time. I was like, you would not believe how many times I ended up having to freestyle a song because I was trying not to curse once I got there, and then I forgot where I was. You know what I
What
mean?
shows are you doing where you can't cuss?
There's been, like, if you know, it's different if you're like at the event
A
center.
lot more than you think,
Yeah.
motherfucker.
Yeah. Like, if you're at the event center and there are kids there, their parents brought them to a show, they're going to know that, you know, you might, like, if you take your kids to see Snoop at the event center, Snoop's not going to edit it. So if you took the time, like, same thing if you took your kids to see Deadpool, you knew ahead of time it's going to be an R-rated movie. You know what I mean? So there's going
And
to
it
be
warned you
cursing.
within the first 2 minutes.
Yeah. Now,
Right.
there have been times where there have been like little shit, like BET came to Casper looking for rappers to do a show, and it was in the middle of the mall. So at that case, I couldn't curse in the middle of, yeah.
I got you.
You know what I mean?
You can't just be throwing out shits and fucks.
Exactly.
I probably would anyway, and just like shut. You know what I mean?
But see, I didn't want to do that because I wanted to win.
Because
So
I'm a motherfucking rebel. I'd be like, bitches and hoes, they'd cut my fucking microphone. Bill wants to do that most of the time.
Yeah.
Like, what was that you said? Hold what? I think I lost you there. No, sorry. There you go.
I wanted to bring up your point to what?
Oh, I was just gonna say I did not, and by the end of this, I might raise my, score, because we do our initial
Right.
grade on it, and then after the conversation, sometimes it can change. I got a feeling my opinion will go up slightly of the movie. Maybe I didn't hate it as much as I wanted, or not wanted to. Didn't hate it as much as I thought.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a big thing for me was just how bad that CGI was, and I'd call bullshit on there. Oh, that was on
It
purpose.
was on purpose.
That sounds fucking like lies to me. I think you're just coming up with an excuse to cover your ass on not having a budget. And I completely understand them having less of a budget, and because they were filming this movie during COVID, right?
It was done. Like, they had to do a lot of reshoots. Plus,
Okay,
they went
so
through a director change. So, like, think of the difference between the original Justice League film that came out in the theaters and then the one that came out, like a year and a half later when they did the Snyder Cut. They're not even the same film.
Right.
Remotely.
I mean, the Snyder Cut is so good, though.
It is. But
It's longer than fuck.
But that's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Whenever you have to go through a director change and you've been sitting on stuff, and not to mention people age. You know what I mean? Like, we're actual people. This isn't, you know what I mean? So they've got to do that de-aging and all kind of other effects. Like, I understand. I'm not giving them, carte blanche to, to make excuses for why shit was done cheaply. But you know what I mean? Like, COVID is something that we have never gone through before as a country, not even as a country, as a planet. So that affected so much.
Slowed everything down, and
Yeah, so
still,
I would
it's still
get that
affecting the
if they-
economy.
If they were like, sorry about the shitty CGI, but we did the best we could at the time.
Yeah, they're
Like,
not going to
hope
do
you
that.
like the but that I would respect that way more.
I agree.
You don't just go, oh, that was on purpose. We're trying to, like, shut the fuck up. No, you were not.
Well,
You
yeah,
were not trying to-
no, it was on purpose, but not for the reasons they said it was. They're like, yeah, it was on purpose because we spent so much fucking money already. We wanted to see what we can get back, and
What we can get.
all in. This is all we got. Fuck y'all. No, I mean not fuck y'all, but they still. I bet they still wanted to put out the best they could, and that was the best they could do.
Well, if they keep anything from this movie, I hope it's the girl playing Supergirl.
I'm going to stop you right there. Hold on. Because this was the point I was going to make before we were going to go any further. For one, much like Henry Cavill was the first English actor to ever play Superman, it's always been an American. She's the first Latin American to ever play Kara Zor-El, a.k.a. Supergirl. It's always been a white person. So that's one.
I think she killed it.
She did. But
She was definitely one of the best parts. Of the movie.
now, as from what you said, as of right now, shit could change, but as of right now, there is already a Supergirl movie in the works, and she is starring in it. That's already
That's gonna be a great movie.
Yeah, it's already established on IMDb. And also, she's a new actress too. When I looked her up, she's only been in like 2 things: soap opera and some. I think it was a Latin movie that didn't really get too much American push. So this is like
I thought she was really good.
She was,
I would've
and
guessed
she's
she'd
beautiful.
been in more movies.
But no, she's fairly young too. So I like get up. I'm all about get them while they're young, and you know what I mean. Make a star out of them instead of finding somebody that already is a star. You know what I mean. They definitely get props for that.
And she wore the fuck out of that suit. Like, my God.
They said Henry Cavill
That's like
actually gave her props for that too.
That was the fucking one of the first things me and you said when we came out. We were like, damn.
Oh yeah.
And, like, of course, like me and you were like, yeah, did you see that? Like, that she was looking real good.
She was. I'd also like to point out she's one of the things that is the same in Flashpoint. The Supergirl, like when they were looking for Superman, it come to find out it was Supergirl. So that was one of the things.
I thought it was Superman in the animated movie. They just found it was the same situation, but it was just a skinny Superman.
Oh yeah, you're right. And then once the sun hit him,
so that's what we're talking about. Like elements
yes
of Flashpoint were there. Them redoing. So when Flash went back during Flashpoint, the universe he came out in, it was Thomas Wayne.
Yes,
so that was the Batman. But they did recreate the experiment. They did all that shit. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that they did hit on.
Yeah,
they just changed it.
Yep. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was Bill had stepped away for a second, and since he hasn't seen it, I wanted to definitely run that one back real quick. So
rewind.
Yeah. So in Flashpoint Paradox, it was Superman. But that was all skinny and like they had been, keeping him in a red sun room so he wouldn't have his powers. And then as soon as they took him outside, of course, he got his powers back. So I like that they changed it from Kara from actually being Superman. But one of the other things they changed was we got a previous Batman and Michael Keaton. In the comic and in the cartoon, it was Thomas Wayne.
Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, it wasn't Bruce. Yeah, and also
in Flashpoint, it was Thomas Wayne that helped him.
And I've picked up on the tail of that story. Yeah,
because his mother ended up being. They never flat out said it, but it was very hinted that Martha Wayne was the Joker.
They eventually flushed that out.
Oh, did they?
I think so. I could be wrong.
It wasn't hinted at. They full on said, like, when Bruce was killed in that universe. But I think that's in a later story. So that's like after Flashpoint.
It's like the following series.
Joker.
Yeah, but they definitely hinted at it in the cartoon and in the actual comic. And also Thomas killed too. So his Batman carried around a gun.
He carried guns like the Punisher.
Yeah. But I like how they did that. Like this is one of the changes that I liked. Instead of it being Thomas Wayne, we got to see an older version of a Batman that we know and love.
Oh, we saw many.
I get why they would change that. They could get Thomas if they could get Michael Keaton for sure. But I wouldn't have minded not seeing Michael Keaton just to see a Thomas Wayne Batman in a movie.
But see,
but we still got all the different multiverse of Batman that's been in the film, which I thought was a great homage, except for
even Nicolas Cage
as Superman. Yeah,
and then also the original Adam West. We saw all these old homages and other different pieces in that. So it's kind of nice to see. And why I like the multiverse thing, and I think it can be, you got to tread carefully. But as far as like different aspects of film, I like how they're incorporating those different. So it's the multiverse of film as far as that medium goes, and I think that's a very impressive. And the Nicolas Cage Superman, that was a failed movie.
It just never
happened. Yeah.
That was Kevin Smith's Superman.
Yeah.
He was involved with it It was actually, I think, Tim Burton.
They wanted him to direct it, but it never got off the ground.
I've seen a bunch of TikTok about it recently, and he was just talking about it, and I think it was a Tim Burton thing, and he was just joking about that they needed to fight a big spider at the end. And he basically was like, this movie is awful. The script is going nowhere. This is not related to the comic. And it just kind of
That's
was
where
ridiculous.
Wild West came from. Do you know that?
No, I didn't.
So if you remember, at the end of that movie, what do they fight? A giant robotic spider.
That's right. Yeah. The giant robot spider.
So they just kind of adapted the story they wanted from that Superman movie, and put it in Wild Wild West.
But speaking from what Bill was talking about, I think this is another one of those films where, like I said, I think a lot of the new films that we've been seeing, they've learned from Spider-Man No Way Home, because there was a lot of fan service. We got what a lot of people 35 and older think arguably is the best Batman in Michael Keaton. We also, at the very end, since we've already said the spoilers,
I don't get that. I think that's nostalgia talking. He's not that great of a Batman.
You're younger than us, and we can get.
No, dude, don't even give me that shit, bro.
I mean, he's also Beetlejuice. You can't fuck with
I grew up on
Beetlejuice.
those movies, and I think Ben Affleck's a way better Batman.
I think Ben Affleck's a better Bruce Wayne. I don't think he's a better Batman.
He did a good job.
I think
he did the role.
But to say
correct.
that Michael Keaton's the best, that's just I think that's just nostalgia talking.
I disagree. You know what I'm saying? But we've gotten to this argument before.
It's the Michael Keaton, Tim Burton combo. And as far as him in Gotham as a character in the film, as the score, and him in that there was this perfect union. And I think it's that combo that makes him the best Batman. And I think this movie was able to kind of pull on that. And I think there was a lot of nostalgia, and I have a hard time separating myself from that. But that was very good. And like I said, I loved, he was just kicking ass, and he's just this old moppy guy. You couldn't tell who he was. There's this old guy with his moppy hair just kicking everybody's ass.
Even his castle Wayne Manor was falling apart because there was no Alfred, and
it's all dilapidated.
Mm-hmm.
And in ruins, and they come in and it's playing music. It was what's the song? It was 25-50 to 1 Chicago, I think.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
It did.
I recognize the song, but I wouldn't have known who it was.
It oddly always reminds me of Metallica's One, like the double bass part of the One, just because it's that.
You know what bummed me out is I get that Val Kilmer couldn't be in the movie because of obvious reasons, but they could have done. Since we're CGI and everything, and they CGI'd the Nicolas Cage Batman or Superman,
right?
Why not have Val Kilmer's Batman in there? And then also, where the fuck was Christian Bale? Maybe they couldn't afford him or whatever the fuck.
Or maybe he didn't want to be part of it.
Contracts.
Actually,
real quick, 25-6 to 4 Chicago.
If he didn't want to be a part of it, he's a dick.
No, that's not it. This was actually on IMDb. He said he would have been willing to have made, a cameo, but he had to have Nolan Ryan. What's the guy's name that did the trilogy, the Dark Knight trilogy? Christopher Nolan. He said he would do it if he had Christopher Nolan's blessing, and I don't think Christopher Nolan. He didn't say anything.
Christopher Nolan, then.
Well, I mean, you got to when you have a successful franchise, you don't want to see anybody touching it. You know what I mean? And regardless of that,
I mean, this is just a nod to it.
But I mean, you'll think same way with the dude that wrote Watchmen. He didn't like the movie or the TV show, and let me rephrase that. He said he'd never watch them. You know what I mean? So a lot of times, directors and writers, they get if it's their work, they don't want to see anybody else mess with it. And I'll give him this. I haven't heard him badmouth it either. So he didn't give his blessing, but he wasn't cussing it out like, oh, they're ruining what I did. So,
well, they definitely did not with Watchmen. I mean, that movie's damn near perfect. There's only a few things missing.
But you know what I mean? Like I said, I understand. Everybody said, even though I don't think Christian Bale was the best Batman or Bruce Wayne, I will honestly say those are probably the 3 best Batman films.
All right. So if somebody sampled your voice and something, say like you did a freestyle on TikTok and somebody else used it and resampled it, would you be pro or con that?
It would depend on if I got paid for it. You know what I mean? And I think music is a little bit different than film because I think as musical artists, we
homage is easier in music.
Exactly. And that's with hip hop. I think there's a lot less of that caring. But think about that big thing that happened with the boy that did the song with Pharrell, and Marvin Gaye's family ended up suing. You know what I mean? It's very, you have to be careful when you do those homages. It pisses some people off. Other people look at it like, oh, thank you. You know, you're bringing back so again, I understand. I wouldn't mind, but I'm also not a millionaire off my music either.
I think it's like you said, it's more about if you're getting paid or not.
Well, and are they making money off of it?
Be upset at all.
And then there's some that can be truly promotional, like if they just kind of tag and kind of remix, so you're getting shared with that. You know, I think there's a mutual benefit.
Yeah, because if somebody sampled my voice and they was like, oh, what song did that come from? And then they go back and start downloading my old music. Yeah, I'm all for it. But, you know, it's not like anybody that, if you're a Batman fan, you're going to watch all the Batman movies. Period. Whether it's you know Christopher Nolan, Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, even as much as we talk shit on George Clooney's.
No.
Yeah, Ed Norton was Hulk. George Clooney.
No, I was just saying if it was
George Clooney's Batman Returns,
And spoiler, he was at the very end,
and I like that.
So we got to talk about and especially the end credit scenes. What universe is he really in now?
I think it's going to be a new one, and I think
because he's not in
home.
Well, check it out. I have an answer to this, and I've thought about this actually. You have to think about it just like in Spider-Man. Each one of those movies actually like happened in the multiverse,
right?
But he is so. We assumed, like when those movies were coming out back in the day, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin. And then the Michael Keaton Batman movies, you assume they just recast the character, and we're supposed to think that Val Kilmer and George Clooney are the same you know what I mean? Instead, each one of those movies, if you look at it now, just like in Spider-Man, are just a trip through the multiverse. You're seeing different
the film
variants or
multiverse.
alternate versions of Batman.
I agree with most of that. It's been written that Val Kilmer, that might be why Val Kilmer's wasn't in it, because his is a continuation of Michael Keaton's.
No, I get that.
But I do understand what you were saying. Like, I do think that when they did George Clooney's, that could be a different universe, because nobody ever said those were continuations. Like it's documented the Val Kilmer's were a continuation of Michael Keaton's movies, but the ones with
I wouldn't doubt that, like, at the time they were like, yes, this is a continuation, but they would have never thought that these would all be getting tied together somehow.
Well, not,
you know what I mean?
30, 40 years later. You're probably right.
Yeah. So you could easily just go, yeah, we thought that before, but now we're just going to say that each one of those movies are a different universe, just like in Spider-Man. And that's easy peasy. That explains the whole deal.
I don't think they need to explain anything. I think at a certain point they shouldn't.
You don't need to explain it.
We need to be able to put it together in however we fit. Just like leaving an open ending to a movie or whatever, that it is up to our own imagination to how these things fit together.
To fill in the blanks
how the multiverse truly works and who's what and who's where, and leaving a little bit of mystery, I think is essential. Not only so you don't have to, so that you first don't have to explain everything, because you can't, because it's at a certain point, it's kind of just your imagination.
Yeah, it's like comics back in the day. The reason there's lasers coming from his eyes are because of this. But
Spider-Man has spider-like abilities.
I would assume that he's in the Batman and Robin universe at this point. So that leaves it open, so we would possibly be able to see Chris O'Donnell back.
We got Aquaman. I mean, that was a Aquaman.
Yeah, that probably wasn't the same one we've seen in like Justice League. Well, it definitely wasn't, remember?
No, it was, because they mentioned some of the things that had happened in the past. When they were leaving the bar and he was drunk, they mentioned something that happened in Justice League.
Yeah, but which? Okay, so that makes it a little weird. That
Not
scene
really-
in
not
particular
really.
kind of fucks shit up.
Not really, because each day, like you can still have similarities amongst universe. Like one, because
Oh yeah, like the spaghetti thing.
Yeah.
The spaghetti thing. We're forgetting about the
There's
spaghetti.
certain
Exactly.
overlaps. And
Yep.
certain. And where did he
Yep.
return? And did it, maybe it is his original timeline, but his original timeline has changed.
because he fucked with
I don't
something.
like that. I don't like that because they explain that away with the whole spaghetti explanation.
But
again.
Well,
not
no, that
necess-
is the spaghetti.
Yep.
It's
Because
it's not like Back to the Future though.
That's
But
what I'm
remember-
saying. But it does. I mean, it's that part where the Back to the Future actually fits the scenario. In like a broken clock is right twice a day.
Yep. Because he allowed his mother to still die, but he still tampered, just not as much, because he did something where his father
changed
looked
the
up.
shelf.
Like as soon as they did that, I leaned over to Leslie and was like, "He's not going to be home because he still changed something." And it was
Yeah.
it was a much how far did it, like, we don't know if a day went by or 2 days or a year, you know what I mean? But time had gone by where he hadn't even realized he was in a different time zone until he got that call from Batman.
See, I thought he
almost
was
seemed-
going to be caught on the camera when he did that. When he looked up, so if Bruce was there, I bet he knows that he rewound further. He's going to see Barry in the camera looking up and saying, "Light bulb, this is how I can save my dad."
Mm-hmm.
So that could be a part of the next, if they continue in this same.
Well, this is the thing is we don't think. I mean, as far as we know, this is going to be the end of this.
But we don't know.
The DCE whatever.
EU, yeah, but we don't know. Like again, that's what we were saying from Jump Street. Like we really don't know what
they're going
going
to keep and what they're not. Yeah.
because we didn't see Cyborg, and I read IMDb that was just because the studio was still pissed for him. You know what I'm saying? Out and all of the shit that the other director did, which was fucked up. I don't know why they're punishing him.
Did what now?
So the original story, the one that we got in Justice League with Josh Snyder, that was how the original cut was going to be. They cut out a whole lot of stuff with Cyborg because Josh Whedon was being a dick. He was being very sexual, saying fucked up shit to women, and he said some really racist shit to the kid that plays Cyborg. And that's why his part was majorly cut out of the first film. And then Snyder put it back in for his cut. Because if you remember, the Josh Snyder cut is very Cyborg-centric.
yeah.
And his part in the original film is what? He's in it like
Yeah,
twice?
he was a big part of things.
Yeah. So I read, like, you know what I mean, on IMDb that the only reason Cyborg wasn't in this film was because the studio still pissed at him for outing Josh Whedon, which I think is bullshit. You know what I mean? How are you going to punish the guy for doing the right thing? But
Yeah. I mean, but that's the way shit works.
that's
in
the way
you know-
Hollywood works. Yeah.
well, politics too.
You're right. Yeah. But yeah, we have no idea. Like we won't know what's going to happen until we start getting these films, the newer films from James Gunn. And I'm, you know what I mean? I'm all in for it. Like I have hope because the reason I put this film so high, for one, like I said, because it was very reminiscent of the actual Flashpoint, but they did enough new stuff. Like there was some stuff where I could lean over and be like, "Oh, I know what's about to happen." But then there was other things like, "Wow, I have no clue what they're going to do." But I like the way they did it. It wasn't like, "Oh, they changed this and this sucks." It's like, "Oh, this fits the storyline. I like this." So I would say, out of all the DCEU movies, so all of the ones that have come after the Dark Knight trilogy, so from Superman, Batman versus Superman, Justice League, the 2 Wonder Woman films, the 2 Aquaman films, the 2 Shazam films, the one with The Rock, what's his character's name? Black Adam. I would say this Flash film is probably, and I'm not counting the Snyder cut because it's its own multiverse as its own. That film was dope. But I would say out of the DCEU films, it's the third best. I think the first fucking Wonder Woman was flawless, and I think the first fucking Aquaman was flawless. And this one is, well, I won't say flawless, the best movies. So I'd say Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and then this one in the order of the best DCEU films.
I agree with Wonder Woman as that being the best for sure. Second and third is a little tricky because a lot of them just kind of blur together and there's nothing that really stands out. I understand why an Aquaman is the most profitable. And this is also interesting as far as revenue, as far as like the first week of, or whatever they kind of gauge, that the first week of ticket sales was not that great. It was later on where it really generated a lot of money for the studios and became the ultimate prize winner as far as revenue goes.
And I think that had a lot to do with Jason Momoa's star power
With
from
his
Game
abs.
of Thrones. Well, yeah, he's
I
for
mean,
In his pecs.
aren't you leaving out Suicide Squad and shit though? I mean that movie.
I'm
is
not leaving an
excellent.
I didn't mention him, but wait a minute, James Gunn's or the
James
original
Gunn's- I like both of them, but the second one's definitely better.
And I like both of them too. And I would put James Gunn in 4 or 5, but I still think, like I said, I'm just giving mine. These are my opinions and my opinions only. If I'm gauging the DCEU movies by their theatrical cuts, because a lot of those films that sucked in the theaters when they came out on video with the director's cut and they had 45 minutes more of what, got left off the table, the films were better. Batman versus Superman. The shit that they cut out of that film, they shouldn't have cut out. It was shit that made sense to the storyline. The director's cut, I think, is a beautiful film. The theatrical cut is garbage. Same way with Justice League. Same way with the first Suicide Squad. They cut so much shit out of those films that the theatrical versions suck. The director's cuts are good.
So do you think that they're trying to fit in too much then?
Maybe.
So as far as the medium goes,
No, I think the theatrical versions don't have enough, and that's why they,
Well,
they
but
seem
but-
disjointed. And,
they're trying to bite off more than they can chew. That would be that's my
well,
question.
I think that's where the Batman Superman movie went wrong. Is like it should have been
Yeah.
just Batman versus Superman. It shouldn't have involved Doomsday. That should have been a separate movie altogether. You do the death of Superman all on its own.
And yeah, we talked about that. But you know what I mean? I think DC was so scared. I think they were so trying to follow what Marvel was doing and had worked. And the reason that I think Aquaman
I think
and
they
one
still are with this movie. Sorry,
no,
go
well,
ahead.
I think this
not
I
wrong.
would say fan service. I think everything that has happened comic book wise since No Way Home is them saying, "Oh, all the stuff that, these little touchbacks and these little things, the fan service. There's been a lot of fan service in films from fucking the animated Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the new Transformers film, this Flash film. They have all learned these little 2-second things. Like if we put in 4 or 5 of those fan services, then that makes the film better overall. So yeah, I think, they stole that from Marvel, but I think they're not trying to follow their playbook anymore. And, I think DC, with the DCEU, even the name, the DC Extended Universe, it's like the Marvel Cinematic, like everything they were doing where they were trying to copy what was working with Marvel instead of coming up with their own thing and making that work,
Right.
in my opinion.
But are they changing anything and doing anything new with just moving James Gunn from Guardians to DC?
I think that would give them an upper that's definitely a boon for them just because then they get an insight from an insider from Marvel and one of their most successful directors at that.
But you got to think,
You know what I mean?
I still wouldn't think that that's a copying Marvel. I think they see him as a success because look at what he did. It wasn't like they gave him Thor or Iron Man or Hulk or Captain America. He took a fairly little known comic book and grabbed different characters and made it successful.
Same thing with Peacemaker.
And not just successful,
right.
he made it one of the biggest franchises
And-
they have.
Maybe that's his key recipe or his key strategy. Especially we're seeing Blue Beetle as one of the first
And
new
that
ones.
looks good too.
And I've never heard of that character before. I'm not a big DC, so
He's
not that
Teen
surprising.
Titans.
Here
Teen
is
Titans.
a little history on that. And when we do an episode on Blue Beetle, my dad wants to join us. He knows a lot about the older comics. And Blue Beetle was from a different comic publisher.
Before DC got the rights.
originally. Yep, and then they ended up bringing him into their universe later. But he's from a completely different a publisher altogether.
Yeah, DC did that a lot. You know what I mean? There was a lot of their not, big five, you know what I mean, that they took from other characters. Because the entire Watchmen came about them finding other characters because the dude that
Isn't
wrote...
Static Shock the same?
Yes, Static came from Milestone.
Mm-hmm. But now he's part of DC, yes?
All of Milestone is part of DC, yeah. So Blood Syndicate, Icon and Rocket, Hardware. Yeah, there were 4 major books at Milestone, and they were minority led, and they all are part of DC. And they have been for 10, 15 years.
Yeah, Blue Beetle he was a part of the death of Superman. That was in 96.
Yeah, and I believe he came over from Atlas Comics, if I remember. I'll have to double check that. But yeah, your dad would know more than me.
Batman's a fascist.
That was funny.
He was telling me a bunch of shit I didn't know. He is such a huge fan of the older comics, like The Spirit, and he's a really huge fan of Doc Savage.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff. I think Blue Beetle might have been from the same publisher as Doc Savage, or one of those.
How old's your dad, roughly?
60.
That would be about right. Yeah, because that would put him in before we started reading. Like, you figure we got late 80s. I'd even go, 80s, 90s. You know what I mean? That'd put him in at 60s and 70s reading. So,
right.
It'd definitely be great to have his input.
Yeah, it would be really. I mean, he was telling me about it. He always is full of older information, obviously, but he is a huge. It's cool to see it from his perspective because his. I mean, we all have our perspective on modern comics and stuff, but he will bring up shit that we don't even think of, you know what I mean? Like stuff that really paved the way. These are like some of the ones that he's really into, like I said, Spirit or Doc. Like these guys are precursors to modern superheroes. This is a era before, what we think of as a superhero now.
Right. Well, yeah, that makes sense because my mom's 70 something, and I remember she had a boyfriend when I was 15, and when he found that I was into comics, he spent a whole weekend going through some of my where I had started reading. And I remember we would have these conversations, whenever they have those little asterisks in the book where they talk about, this took place in such and such and such. He stopped reading about the time I started reading, so he could tell me more than just those little footnotes. He'd be like, oh yeah, this happened in X-Men such and such and such. And it you know what I mean? It was just great, actually having basically a walking encyclopedia from where my information started was where his ended. And it was great. My mom hated it because, you know what I mean? We'd go off for hours having these conversations, but at that point I was almost an adult, you know what I mean? It was great to be able to have those conversations. So
it's the same with me and my dad. I mean, where, his knowledge starts to fall off when he was getting out of comics is when I was a kid and I was just getting into it. So it's a lot of the stuff so he kind of bridges the gap or takes the timeline back further for me a lot of the time, because I mean it's really cool. I mean, and I really enjoy that about him.
And I do that. I do the same thing with my kids. You know what I mean? Especially my oldest, my 21-year-old. It's great when he hit me up from Texas. And prime example, he watched our podcast, and he's the only person so far I've ever talked to that said they didn't like Across the Spider-Verse. He didn't like it at all.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
We haven't gotten into it deep, but
Beth was like,
That's
what did you
crazy
think?
talk.
Meh.
but she's not into the animated ones that much anyway.
Yeah.
My son loved the first one, so the fact that he didn't like this one shocked me. So.
Maybe
Yeah,
it
that
was
is
more
shocking
about
because I thought it was
Spider-Gwen. Maybe it
I
was
thought it was a better movie
I did too.
than the first one, and it's hard to top the first one. I mean, that's a fucking pretty flawless movie.
All right, so let's get back on the Flash before we go too far off. So we know that we got all the different Spider. When you were talking about the film thing, there was when they were doing the Superman, going back to the black and white. when they showed Christopher Reeve.
Oh yes.
Oh my goodness, and the chick that played Supergirl.
Supergirl.
I had to hold back tears on that one because that's my generation. My first connection seriously with comic book films, or actually even with comic books, because before I was reading comic books, Christopher Reeve was the first one for me. Like, you know, the Adam West was a little campy, and yeah, I saw those, you know what I mean? And I enjoyed them, but, you know, that was funny.
But yeah, when it was an actual hero or somebody to kind of look up, same with me. That was the first one. There was a stage in my life where I just ran around with a Superman cape.
Yeah,
all the time,
or a towel when I didn't have an actual cape. Yeah. So seeing Christopher Reeve, that was big for me. And I will, if you want to talk about giving it a high mark for that nostalgia, that was another one. You know what I mean? I definitely gave him up for that.
Yeah, seeing him was pretty cool. Didn't you see the old Adam West Batman in there somewhere?
Yep.
So that's why it was tough to not see like Val Kilmer or Christian Bale.
But you know what? We don't know that they weren't, because there were, like, maybe we didn't see them because they didn't put them on the big screen. There were so many little, like, you remember how there were a whole bunch of Spider-Men when Miles was running? We didn't see all. Like, I saw a meme today where they said there were 217 Spider-Men in this picture. How come we didn't see one of them in this new Craven thing, or we didn't see one of them in Morbius? You know what I mean? 217 Spider-Man, and this is in a stopped scene, so a snapshot from the film. They could have done the same thing when they were showing, you know, them going through that timeline thing with the Flash. Maybe they were, but maybe they weren't prominent as much because they didn't pay for them or somebody. You know what I mean? So that'll be one, you know, I'd like to look forward to when, you know, when I see it the second time. So when it comes out on video, because maybe they were there and we just didn't see them.
Well, and I kind of feel like they somewhat merged Christian Bale's Batman with Ben Affleck's, because the bike that Ben Affleck's riding at the beginning of the movie,
when they flew him, dropped him out of the jet.
It's very reminiscent of the Tumbler bike.
Yeah, I can see that.
It wasn't the same thing, but it looked a lot like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And honestly, that could have been another one of those budget things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, why don't we go because that
we
would
still have the props.
Yep. And let's change a little, you know, we can
So did they still have the prop? Because it was the set from when they went to Bruce Manor and the Relic house was the same set. Or I mean, it was very like the
From which
ninja
movie?
from the original the '86 Batman.
Nice.
and it was the same, and it was his Batmobile too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that the Batmobile. That was pretty cool to see the old Batmobile again.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't really drive it. He was mostly in the plane.
Yeah.
And it's probably because I would bet they sold most of those. Like, I know Jeff Dunham owns one of them, and I think what's the dude that had the late night talk show? Has like 100 cars.
Jay Leno.
Oh,
Jay Leno has one of them, and then there was the third one, and I think one of the TV prop things, you can rent it in LA. You know what I mean? So maybe, you know, they couldn't have him driving it because they, you know what I mean? It was like, yeah, we rented it for the day, so it could be in this scene, and it's got to go back. So.
And by the way, Jay Leno has like 6 warehouses
full of cars. Yeah.
Like monster warehouse. He's got fucking tons of cars.
But yeah, Jeff Dunham, he bought one of
Collecting
them.
comics was expensive.
Right.
Collecting warehouses of cars.
And it's a lot more expensive than comic books, because if you don't drive them, T-Pain used to have a bunch of them too, and he said if you don't drive them, then you have to do all this shit for maintenance on them because they're not being used, and it gets expensive.
He probably has a collection.
He's got people maintaining them.
Oh yeah, when you have Jay Leno money, of course.
And he's probably has a way to sustain the money to keep it running. You know, I would imagine
he's got a TV show and a YouTube channel that just dedicated to his cars.
It's a business all on its own.
Yeah.
So he has employees that maintain and take care of his cars and all that shit. You know, and I'm sure he's buying and selling cars on the regular too, and making money that way.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I follow his YouTube channel, his car YouTube channel, not his TV show one. because he'll
so
forever
much
do
better
like he
than
does like
the
night. He'll go see people with Knight Rider cars and Dukes of Hazzard cars and shit like that. And that's them '80s vehicles. That's right up my alley.
He's so much better in those shows because he is so passionate about cars. That I mean, he's so much different than he was on like the Tonight Show and whatever.
Well, it's whenever that's anything. Whenever you're talking about something that you care about, like us with this.
Yeah, it's just so much better. He's way better on doing his own thing.
What have we forgotten anything really moot about the film?
As far as just like
Well, I don't want
dislikes,
to give. What now?
as far as just things we disliked, or as far as
Well, I think I covered like what I didn't like about the movie. And honestly, I think by the end of this, I'll probably end up raising my score to around a 6.5, maybe a 7.
That's 7. I can see it. Because for me to give a movie a 5, man, we're talking almost fucking B-level films.
when we were originally talking, you said 3, Mike.
Oh, he told you 3
on the phone. You're like, oh, it's a 3. Fuck this movie.
Damn.
Yeah, I was being a hater.
I'm giving it a 7.5. I think I didn't say at the beginning, but I think it was entertaining. It was fun. It was a minor miracle that it actually happened. And I think because of all the challenges and even just the Ezra Miller stink, it 7.5. And I think that's being optimistic, favorable. And I think it's actually on par with Rotten Tomatoes, sadly. But
yeah, it's not the worst piece of shit I've ever seen, but not by any means. We've seen way worse
Daredevil,
superhero
Morbius.
shit in our time. Yeah, exactly. It's like
Halle Berry is fucking Catwoman. Yeah,
I'm gonna start a fight. Twilight.
Ouch!
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, that was painful.
I have to say I watched every one of them though, so whether I liked it a lot, they got my fucking money.
I read all the books, so
there you go. One of these days we're gonna have to do one where we're shit movies that we like movies that we know
that people should hate.
Yeah,
like wearing Crocs, the Crocs of movies.
Yes.
I'm wearing Crocs right now.
Right.
So you call those your guilty pleasure movies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't like it, but you love it for whatever reason. And
yeah, I think
honestly, my favorite guilty pleasure movies are the first 2 Planet of the Apes movies.
The original ones with Charlton Heston or the remakes?
Yes, the originals.
Oh man, but those are considered that you can't even call those bad films.
The first one was epic.
Yeah,
they're pretty fucking cheesy, man. They're pretty cheesy, but I love them
they.
anyway.
They don't stand the test of time now, but for 2030, like they won awards for what they did for prosthetics and shit.
And I think just the plot and the writing itself withstands the test of time, that you can even, I think you should, in the right, film context or just the craft to science fiction, be able to get past that.
Yeah.
If you're a nerd in that area.
When people say shit movies, I'm thinking like Toxic Avenger, Tank Girl, shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, if you say most people, even if they're not fans of sci-fi, are that's a Charlton Heston film. And like I said, it won awards for fucking prosthetics.
UHF, Weird Al.
Yeah.
Dumb and Dumber. But then I get into spoofs.
Well,
let's say we're
getting long here. We should probably give our final thoughts.
Movies that are so bad that they're good type thing.
But yeah, I think we should do that one for one. You know what? I'm gonna drop now that I see why you went up, and I'm glad you went up to a 6.5 because I think being 5 was being kind of overly nitpicky at it. I'm gonna drop mine to an 8. You know what I mean? Because I will say a lot of the reasons I gave it such a high mark originally was because there was a lot of nostalgia in it for me.
It's the best DCEU movie ever.
I wouldn't say best. It's still in my top 5.
I was like, he said it was a perfect 10. It's the best DC movie ever made.
Who said
And I
that?
was like,
Who said that?
Virus. MC Virus.
I understand why he said it. I
do
don't
too.
agree. I understand why
I
he
do
said it.
too. I know why he said it, and he's just saying that. He don't really. I mean, it's again. I think it's just nostalgia talking. I think you know what I mean. Seeing Michael Keaton, you know.
But
that's
I'm
the same
still.
it's the same reason why I love Long Way Home or whatever the fucking latest Spider-Man was
Yeah,
called.
No Way
God
Home.
damn it.
No Way Home. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
The
the
Long
same reason
Road
I
Home.
like.
I'm still good. I will say I think the storyline alone. Because what I did, I started thinking in my mind. I was like, all right, the CGI sucks, so I'm going to give it a 5 for the CGI. Then I'm giving it a 10 for the story because I really think it is one of the best storylines. It was very well done, but there were also some plot holes here or there, and there were other things that I didn't. So with my average on everything, I'm gonna take mine down to a solid 8. But I still stick to what I said. It's the 3rd best DCEU movie to me.
So moving forward, what do you think the future holds? What are you
It's hard to
expecting?
predict,
What do you want to see? What would kill it for you?
It's hard
What
to
would kill it
predict.
for me would be if they went back to doing things like they did with fucking Batman versus Superman and Justice League and trying to do too much and cutting too much out. As long as they keep the storylines decent, good storylines, even if they start over with the new cast, which I hope they don't do with everything, because I'm still a little upset. As much as I didn't like the first Superman film and as much as I didn't like Batman versus Superman overall, I still think the actors did a great job. I'm upset we're not getting the Ben Affleck Batman movie. I'm upset we're not getting another Superman Henry Cavill movie. Like I said, I don't blame anything in the DCEU on the actors. I blame it with the writers and the directors. That being said, after seeing this film, I'm very hopeful for the future of DC.
I think that's a good way to put it. And like you said, what do you expect in the future? That's a hard one to predict just because of what we've been saying this whole episode. It's like it's hard to know what they're going to keep, what they're going to get rid of. It's like so trying to predict or
and not even like specific plot points, but it's like I don't want to see another spandex suit or
I don't want to see another Batman origin or another Superman origin. You know what I mean?
that's a good point. Unless
And
there's
you don't
some
wanna see
unique
Ezra Miller
twist.
Yeah, I see. You know what? I don't have a problem. I've always said this. You know what I mean? Because everybody says Tom Cruise is a dick. I've never met him. I don't know that. So I love
but there's
Tom
a
Cruise.
difference.
He didn't
Between
throw
being
a chair at some chick. I mean,
and
that's
you
the thing.
can-
He's been like violently towards, and I read a statement where he actually apologized for it and was, saying that it was his
He did
health
way more
issues.
than that, though.
He did.
He
There
did
was
way more than
there
that,
there was
though.
a few
was
there was a few
grooming-
different charges I was looking at was actually on is officially charged.
Yeah, he was grooming children. He was fucking like the dude's a pedophile. Like,
Yes,
straight
but see,
up.
You got to be careful throwing those words around.
exactly because
I'm gonna say creepazoid happen. I would.
He's grooming children.
Yeah,
he was grooming. It counts as. Here's my issue with that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it's right by any. You start throwing around words without putting the actual facts things behind it. He was 18, and he was. If you want to use the term grooming, which you got to be real careful with that, especially since he hasn't been charged yet. The girls that I think there was a girl and the parents let him with her, you know what I mean? So it wasn't like he kidnapped this chick. It was a 16-year-old when he was like 18. Yes, that's bad, but in certain states that's legal.
Legal, whether it was right or not. No,
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
When you say grooming and you say children, that means people are thinking like 10, 9, 5, 6 as an adult. You know what I mean? It does throw things into perspective when it's a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old, especially if they knew each other before he was legal. Like and again, I'm not saying it's right, but you got to be careful when you're not giving context to things. You know what I mean?
and at a certain point, I'd like to trust the legal system. I know that's a little bit of a joke now that I actually say that out loud.
That's
But-
hilarious.
It's at a certain point you got to let things kind of air out, and I would, karma or whatever would hopefully kind of catch up.
Yeah. But see,
I mean,
but like
that's
the same thing that's going on.
Dangerous
with,
throwing those words around too.
because you know what I mean. I am very afraid, and I'll cut this off because this is another episode too. I am very afraid of what's going to happen to Jonathan Majors. You know what I mean? Especially if he's
me too.
innocent.
Facts.
You know what I mean? Because if it comes out that he's innocent, but he's getting dragged through all this shit, it's not going to matter whether he's innocent or not because his title will already have, you know what I mean? His people are already going to have a thought about him.
And there's other stuff coming up, but nothing substantial, and it's a lot of hearsay, but he doesn't look very good either.
Yeah.
And
even if he's found innocent, there's always going to be in the back of certain people's minds, oh, I'm not going to go watch Avengers Kang Dynasty because blah, blah, blah with Jonathan
he's a woman
Majors.
beater or
Yeah.
whatever. It's tough. What is the truth with the capital T these days?
Mm-hmm.
So let's
I
jump
guess
the orbital ball and trying to figure this all shit out.
So eight
I
for
guess
Flash.
I can agree.
Sorry, man.
No, I guess I can agree with what you're saying. I mean, it does make it tough. It's just, I don't know. Me and Chelsea were looking through a lot of. It's a lot more than what we've talked about just now.
It is. Yeah, he's being charged with a lot, accused of a lot.
There's a lot of stuff. So, and it looks, I mean, really horrible. What did Jonathan Majors get in trouble for or whatever?
Beating
Was
up
it
a
like,
girl.
We're talking about Jonathan Majors there for a second.
No, I got you.
You
But
switched back to Ezra.
But yeah,
Right.
he's accused of beating a woman.
Well, I hope he didn't.
I hope he didn't too. But like I said, even if he's found not guilty, the damage has already been done. Like I've already started to see people calling for a recast, and I'm not about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't want a recast. That would suck. Because he is such a good actor, and as much as I disagree with the way Ant-Man ended, I loved him in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a guy that beat how many different Avengers throughout the timeline and shit, and he gets beat by Ant-Man. I just don't see.
So
But that's another conversation.
Yeah.
another crazy part is of the people who've played major villains and things. Gore is now actually in the lineup of nice people.
Right, Christian Bale.
Kristen Bale
Mm-hmm.
as being such a almost kind of method, almost psychopathic actor.
And we can also say
let's bring him back.
yeah. Same with the dude that played Spider-Man. He was known for cussing people out, especially paparazzi.
Oh, Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
Toby.
And you know what I mean? See, here's my thing with cancel culture. A lot of times it has a very short lifespan unless it completely destroys somebody's career. You know what I mean? Like if you can make it past the first 6 months, a lot of times they're forgiving or forgetful,
And that's what I
think
think that's
with
what
Tobey
Marvel's
Maguire-
doing.
I think with Tobey Maguire, it has a lot to do with him not having, he just doesn't like putting up with people's bullshit. You know what I mean?
And he's no longer an actor that's getting paid on the top salary.
Yep, he's not on the A-list anymore.
Just like the actor who did Doc Brown from, he isn't always in the top of the line. He's not making money, but he's still famous and known for these iconic roles.
Mm-hmm.
But he ain't getting paid for it anymore.
Right.
But anyways, I think we're kind of running long here. I think we should kind of give our final thoughts about the Flash here. And
Go see The Flash. That's what I'm saying. Go see it. Decide on yourself. What do you think? I say go see it.
And I think it's important to say that for these episodes, we're not trying to convince you one way or the other. We're just kind of giving our opinions. Like anytime we talk about one of these movies, if we're talking about it, it's at least worth going and checking out and drawing your own conclusions. But hopefully you aren't listening to this without seeing the movie anyway.
so you really should just tell us what you think and tell us where we're fucking wrong in the comments.
Ooh, definitely, yeah.
Or right.
Yeah.
or both right and wrong at the same time.
I agree with that.
You know, that's that
exactly.
really helps support us too. If you're listening, you know, rating us, commenting, sharing, all that stuff really helps us grow.
And thank you for doing those that have. Thank you and thank you.
Wherever you're listening, Spotify, iTunes,
YouTube.
Yeah.
And remember, we will be at, what is it?
Comic-Con,
just in
June
like 2
24th
days.
and June 25th.
So from when we release this, it'll be in 2 days. So we're gonna try and just blitzkrieg everything as soon as we get something hot that's happening. If we have good internet, we're gonna probably just go live. But
tell us what you think about. You know what I mean? If you think we've been very wrong on something, it doesn't even have to be the latest. Let us know. Like, I watched that or I listened to that one you said, man, were you off? And then tell us why. We want that.
Exactly. This is a community. We're not the complete experts. We want to kind of be challenged.
Definitely.
So
Yeah, well, for sure, and and we always enjoy like hearing people's opinions, or even if we got like a fact wrong, and you're like, "Whoa, it wasn't like that. Like it happened. Like you know what I mean?" Because we definitely want to be like right about what we're saying too.
and I don't know about y'all, but I do drink a lot, so cheers.
Well,
Cheers.
Depends on the episode. I've been pretty hammered on these a few times.
It's not a whiskey night.
Anyway.
Yeah, so check us out, thecomiczone.com. Everything you need to know. Twitter, Facebook,
TikTok.
Yep. Everything is right there.
All the damn shit.
So we
Join
do a lot
us in the group and share some memes with us, and just it's always fun in there too.
And congratulations to Jenna, our newest member, man. She's been sharing some crazy
She's
shit lately.
killing it, dude.
Yeah.
That girl's been killing it. I actually thought about maybe we should get her on the show because she's hilarious.
She is. She's a big anime fan too, by the way.
You know her?
Yeah.
All right. Maybe
Nice.
on a future
Well,
episode
talk
if you're
to her
lucky.
and think about getting on the show, maybe.
We can make that happen.
All right.
All
Until
right.
next time,
Later, guys.
same bat time, same bat channel, and as always, keep it black.